In this episode.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
Look at that again. You can see it starting to leak out. Hello everyone, welcome back to Eurofever Garage. As always, I'm your host Donovan, and welcome to episode 3 of Projekt Giulia. Today we'll be continuing the process of getting the car tuned. We have a few bits and bobs that we need to address beforehand. I finally got the reports back from Blackstone, not only on the engine oil, but also the transmission, so we'll go through a little bit of that. We've got some control arms that are needing to be installed, as well as the process to actually tune your vehicle with boot mode. If you're used to heavy BMWs or all-wheel drive BMWs, you'll know that these tend to go out around 50 to 70,000 miles. They are fluid filled, they're hydraulic fluid, so it'll start to leak and you'll start to see this black-like fluid start to leak out. On top of that, it starts to wear the bushing pretty rapidly, so you want to replace those pretty quickly. Fortunately, I got the last two that were in stock at the time. Now, if you're familiar with M539 restorations, he's had a lot of unlucky purchases with Lemforder. I do not share that same luck, though maybe that runs out today. Typically, I've been using both Lemforder, TRW, and occasionally, if there's no other options, Mahle. Now again, you want to do your own due diligence. However, a lot of these parts do have warranties on them, and it's a pretty simple process if you've done control arms before. The only difference here is that because I have air suspension, you're gonna lock that out. So before we get into what tools are necessary, I would highly suggest finding and installing ISTA and ISTA Plus, because you can follow the procedure like I have behind me and making sure you're following it to the T, as well as replacing any bolts and torque values where necessary. However, I cannot leave a link for ISTA as I already have it set up. You will have to find that on your own. And with that, before we do this job, let's see some tools needed to do the control arms.
In order to do a control arm job, it's quite simple. There aren't too many specialty tools necessary, but there are oftentimes a lot of trim pieces like aerodynamic panels, splash shields, and so forth in the way. You might need anywhere from 8 to 13 millimeter sockets, as well as the socket for your wheel lugs. So in my case, it's 17 millimeters. And lastly, some torque wrenches to ensure you can properly torque to specifications. Specialty tools include a T30 Torx bit for counter holding, as well as an E12 socket for the inboard bolt for me. Outside of that, hand ratchets and electrical ratchets will help make the job easier, as well as a 24 millimeter wrench and socket for the nut of the control arm that fixes to the knuckle. So here is the inboard bolt that is an E12 external Torx. On the bolt itself you can see the larger gray piece, but to the left of that is the auxiliary radiator if you have that option. Be very careful when taking this out, as the crash element can slowly work its way into the auxiliary radiator, and you want to be mindful of that so that it doesn't puncture that radiator.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
We are about a quarter of the way through the entire job because we've just taken out the one tension arm, got to put it back in, and then repeat on the other side. However, I thought this would be a good point to not only catch my breath, but also show you the difference between a new and the old tension strut to compare the old versus the new bushing as well as the ball joint. So right here, I've got the left one. And as mentioned, these bushings are fluid filled. So if you can see right there, that is clearly perished. So you can see where it's failed. Uh-oh, look at that. It's leaking straight from it right there. And the way that the shape of all this force is, if you see really, really closely, you see how there's all these creases down here. There's a little bit up here, and I'll show it on the other side too. Up here, you can see there's some creasing. However, the fluid's starting to come out and it is time to go. So the way this goes in, it's like this. All that fluid pulls out and it goes boom, boom, boom. This is the back of your car, and it was clearly time to come out. I mean, I can just, look at that again. You can see it starting to leak out. Glad I was doing this. It was well overdue regardless. This side is fine. Brand spanking new bushing inside there. Nothing crazy. While the ball joint itself don't usually fail, I will say, I've never really seen them fail, it's the bushing. This just has so much weight on it. Control arms are always the first thing to go. Fortunately, on most cars, especially if you're rear wheel drive, you can actually do regular bushings instead of fluid filled ones. Mahle typically does them. I don't remember what they're called, but I know on the 4 Series, when I did those control arms, same situation. I ended up going with Lemforder because I was going for more of a comfort oriented. If you're trying to have your car have a little bit less flex, or you're trying to turn it into more of a track car, you want to do the M3 control arms, which are much, much better construction. I'm speaking out of my ass here. I'm not engineering explained. Let's go put this back in the car. Oh, one more point before I go on. I really wanted to point out this stupid fucking bolt. This crash element is so heavy, and I know it's supposed to go back in. I'm gonna put it back in. I had the hardest time taking this thing out. Honestly, I might even get a new one. I haven't stripped it yet, but it's definitely not looking great. But on top of that, this bolt is so long that it goes up to the auxiliary radiator. And so you have to be very, very careful that you're not going straight into that, or else you might puncture something. Now, I loosened the clip to take off the hose clamp so that I would have more space, but I don't want to have to fill up the cooling system just to do a control arm. So buyer beware, I guess. Installation's obviously the reverse, so let's get back to the car.
When tightening down the 24mm nut, you'll know when you have enough torque down when the counterhold no longer spins. From this point, you'll want to grab your torque wrench and set it to 100 Newton meters and torque it down. After that, we'll need to rotate by an additional 90 degrees. So a tip for that is to mark the nut, and then from that point, continue to rotate until you hit 90 degrees. Now that that's done, before we torque the inboard bolts at ride height, let's move to the passenger side and repeat the process. Alrighty, so if you can tell here, the car has just barely started to lift up, which means we are now at ride height and I can now torque the bushing. So a little bit of context from previous episodes, if you haven't seen, I have now done 3 oil changes on the 7 series, and the very first one I did a oil analysis. Even though it was fresh oil, I really wanted to ensure that the health of the engine was good. So I'll put that report up here now. It's actually going to be the most current one because it has all the averages across each sample when they were taken. So starting, if you look from the farthest right point for May 9th, 2024. So this would have been a couple weeks after I owned the car. As you can see, about 300 miles, so about 1 tank of gas. That's when I did the first oil change. So the original sample can't really be used as a baseline because it only had 300 miles. It's not really a break-in period for oil. Nothing's really broken down, so I won't really report on that too much. Moving to the left, we'll start with just what Blackstone's insights are. I'm just gonna read it word for word and we'll go through some of the numbers. Metals aren't much higher than where they were last time. It's impressive considering how much longer this oil was in place. The wear levels are all below average for the engine type too. It looks like the oil sharing parts are getting along very nicely. A harmless trace of fuel is the only contamination found.
A slightly thin viscosity is still fine and insolubles are low. Changes in additive elements, molybdenum, boron, calcium through zinc, indicate that this wasn't the same brand of oil as in the first sample. Lastly, some of the extra moly is from Ceratec. Nice report. So going through some of the minerals and materials, this middle section is for averages and it literally just combines the two. So going through, we can see aluminum's just barely higher, iron is slightly higher, copper, molybdenum's higher because of the extra Ceratec, titanium is lower, boron is slightly lower, silicon is the same, sodium is slightly lower. Calcium is higher, I don't know if that's good. Magnesium is much lower, phosphorus is basically the same, zinc is slightly higher. These might just be extra additive packages from Molygen versus Mobile One. Going into properties, the only thing I like to point out here, they did mention because the extra fuel traces were in the oil, I do a lot of short trips. I try to get these cars out as much as possible. It's been noted in most of my reports, whether it be on the E38, the F32, not so much the E82 because that gets driven a lot, but my cars in particular, I try to drive them as much as possible and try to push them hard when I do the infrequent drives. Again, can't get around that long term. But so that is the oil report. Moving on to the transmission. So my transmission fluid I did at about 61,000 miles, a little bit over, kind of higher than where I would have liked to. I would have liked to have done it first thing, but I really only put about 4,000 miles on. The unfortunate bit is that a lot of what BMW tells its owners is that you don't need to do the transmission servicing. On a car like this, with a lot of torque going to the rear, I didn't know the condition. It's just honestly better to do it rather than not, especially the earlier on you can do it. It's going to make your transmission a lot happier, a lot healthier, and hopefully last longer. I mentioned that this is probably the very first service. I did it exactly with the same ZF Lifeguard 8 OEM fluid. I did liquid mollies on the 4 Series, and while I think it's pretty good, a cost-effective alternative, on a car of this caliber and the value of the car, I thought it'd probably be best to just stick with OEM. So going through the report, this report looks good, especially if it's original oil. We'd expect to see some bold marks for a few metals, in that case due to wear-in. Metals in this sample were all within acceptable ranges for a ZF 8HP. Those are based around 66,000 miles on the oil. Copper, tin, and iron are a bit on the high side, and maybe they'll come down on this next sample. We'd be fine if they stayed around these levels too. No moisture or other contamination is evident. Insolubles at a trace show very low oxidation. Viscosity is on target. So going through these samples, these are my own numbers, so I can't really report on them. If we look all the way to the far right, there's a section that says universal averages. That's going to tell you, again, typically what a 66,000 mile oil change looks like. Everything looks a little bit lower. Like they mentioned, copper is a little bit higher. The boron is actually lower, calcium slightly higher, phosphorus is lower. So most of this looks pretty decent. Again, for 61,000 miles, I'm pretty happy with that. Once you've done the original change, I have read that around 30,000 miles is a good second and post intervals anytime after that. Just because you've evacuated all the original fluid, you want to make sure that you're consistently putting in fresh fluid that matches the consistency of the old stuff. What happens is if you go from a really old transmission, let's say 180,000 miles, even above 150, what happens is that all of that clutch pack, all the material, the friction material on an automatic transmission is gone. So then it just is going to be slipping through the gears. Transmission technology has changed. They're a lot more robust. They're a lot more reliable. Could probably go farther, could probably go longer. I'm basing all of my knowledge off of previous experience, other forum member posts, and just kind of what feels right to me. Again, this car is not for the faint of heart nor the faint of funds. So if you want to make sure your car lasts a long time, especially because we're tuning it, you want to make sure all of your moving parts are happy. All right, now that we know that the health of the car is up to par, we've done the diff, we've done the control arms, let's get in the car, let's tune it. I've got the car on the trickle charger and let's hop in. All right, now that we're in the car, a couple notes before you actually start. You want to make sure you minimize as much of the power draw and getting as much power in. So Obviously, like I mentioned, hook your car up to a trickle charger. The more power, the better, especially in these newer vehicles and higher trims, you have a lot of power draw. So in order to minimize that, AC off, headlights on, off, close your door and then buckle your seatbelt. There's a very small chance nowadays that you'll break your ECU and your DMEs, but just for the sake of your car, sake of your wallet, don't do anything while you're tuning. So with that, let's get over to the computer. We're gonna start at boot mode or whatever tuning platform you're going to use. I have 2 accounts because I now have 2 cars tuned with boot mode. Other providers may have the ability to switch between the 2, but for this sake, if you are returning or a new person, it's basically the same process. Make an account, grab your license, and then go download the boot mode agent. So once you've done that, go ahead and go to the boot mode login, which is going to take you to this page. I've already logged in, so I'm actually going to switch over to my account. But before you do that, go back to Pro Tuning Freaks, and you're going to grab this How to Connect guide. Basically runs you through the different options if you want to do your phone, Android, Apple, computer like I'm doing. On that note, I have a Ethernet to OBD2 port hooked up into my computer, and then I have the agent downloaded. So with that, looking at the computer, like I mentioned, run the OBD boot mode 3 agent, and it'll take about 30 to 45 seconds to read your DMEs. Swap back over to boot mode. Once you've logged in, you're gonna have a section at the top that says add vehicle. Let it read your OBD and then enter in your license. You can see here, this is all the information for my vehicle. From this point, we're going to go down to OTS maps, off-the-shelf maps, and then based on what supporting mods you have for your vehicle, if you're, just doing a downpipe, maybe some charge pipes, an exhaust, whatever, you might be stage 2. For the N63, TU, TU2, and TU3, generally only needs high flow or catless downpipes. For my specific example today, I'm only doing stage 1. We've only done the charge pipes. I don't plan on doing anything else. So in my case, stage 1, and then also with 93 octane, because Texas has it readily available, get tune, confirm. I've already downloaded it. So from this point, go back to my maps. So you have 2 options. You've got your stock tune if you need to go back to stock for whatever reason, emissions, going in to get your car serviced on, whatever. I think the BMW diag systems can tell whether or not you flashed it in the past. So do it at your own risk. If you have a warranty, if you don't have a warranty, this is gonna void it regardless. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to stage 1, 93 octane. Before you do this, we're gonna go to config. I'm not gonna go through all of these, just briefly touch on them, at least the ones that I've changed. If you're in the B58 community and you like burbles, this is where you do it. Otherwise, I pretty much keep everything stock. Burbles, max cooling, I did turn on, cold start, cat heating, as well as RPMs, original. I haven't touched anything else. Exhaust flaps I have open. Now my car has the increased speed limiter, but there is still a limit. So I just turned that off. Haven't messed with the catalytic converters. So if you did, you're gonna click this option right here for the monitors and click off. Continue down, torque limit patch. You're basically just going to change that if you're going with XHP. If not OEM, just keep it as stock. Again, a lot of these keeping stock. From that point, you click Save Changes, we go back, and then you're ready to tune. So, as I mentioned earlier, let's double check everything. Your car's on a trickle charger, you have no AC on, no headlights on, your door is closed, you're good. That's pretty much it, right? From this point, you click flash, you click press here to flash now, and then you let it sit. For the first time, it's gonna take you about maybe 10 minutes at max. Usually it's pretty quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and click flash, come back once we're done. Make sure I didn't brick my ECU because I'm not gonna sit here and let you guys watch me brick a $100,000 car. So be back in a second. Okay, so everything was a success. From this point, what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn off your vehicle. It says to wait about 10, 15 seconds. Just wait it out. I do 30, again, just to be safe. 30 seconds goes by. You can take everything off and then start your car. So that's it. Congratulations, you have a tuned vehicle. Let's go get this out on the road and see what 600 pound-feet of torque to the rear-wheel drives feels like. All right, so I don't want to lose too much grip, so we're gonna do kind of a rolling start. Let's do sport mode, sport transmission, and hold the brake, a little bit of gas, and off. Oh my God. And 65, oh my. 500 horsepower is definitely no joke. If you haven't watched the video already, I drove a M235i not too long ago, and that had about 300 horsepower, but it was all-wheel drive. The 0 to 60 on that car, I want to say, is about 5.5 seconds. This one, when new, again, just rear-wheel drive, 445 horsepower. I think you're looking at somewhere around 4.5 seconds 0 to 60. If you get M4, M3, those have all-wheel drive, 500 horsepower, and they weigh like 1,500 pounds less than this probably. You're looking at mid to high 3 seconds when you have a tune and you have proper grip. So this, I would estimate, probably comes down to, at most, 3.7. That's a very, very aggressive estimate because it's rear-wheel drive and how much my wheels were losing grip there. And also, I didn't punch it off the start. I did kind of a roll into it. You can do all the prepping you want to do, but going back to what I said, this is not made for constant abuse of, you know, launching it off the start, especially in sport mode. 600 pound-feet of torque to the rear is way too much for me to be comfortable, you know, doing that safely. So I already mentioned it multiple times before. I'm just repeating myself here. Wider tires are coming, but oh my God, this thing is fast. In this car on the highway, and it just keeps pulling. It keeps on pulling. And I'm just absolutely astounded at how this car changes in sport mode versus comfort. It feels like different animals. You put it in comfort, you put it in comfort plus, it's super bouncy. There's like no throttle response. And then I'm in sport mode here and it just stiffens up. You know, the active sway bars, the 10 millimeter drop in the suspension, the steering's heavy, the throttle response is right there. It is by no means a lap record breaker at the Nürburgring, but my God, would this be close behind something. And if I was in anything else, like a 3 Series, a 5 Series, and I saw this coming up behind me, I would absolutely move out of the way. If you haven't seen Misha's video, he did an Alpina B7 not too long ago, and he absolutely loved it. And those cars have about the same as the V12s, about 600 horsepower. It's crazy to me how this car feels. At the end of the day, I do think the M550 is a little bit of a better buy in terms of value, in terms of size, daily usability, and outside of just general size and drivability, like I mentioned, I'm sure you'd get a few extra miles per gallon on an M550 over this as well. Highway is really where this car does the best. If I'm doing my long road trips, I get 30 to 33 miles a gallon. That's the best I've ever gotten, was about 33 miles to the gallon. So I'm just super impressed with how this car drives. It's not made to be anything more sporty per se. If you had the B58, I'd maybe say you could do more. But again, this car is so comfortable. If you really want something sportier, go for the M550. I think you're gonna have a much, much better time. I certainly have enjoyed driving this car, and I think it's the best car I've ever owned. But long term, I have no idea how this is gonna turn out. So let's get back to the garage and we'll close this video out. So that concludes episode 3 of Projekt Giulia. If you want to see how we got to this point and see how to do a differential and a transmission service, go check out the playlist up here. Otherwise, press subscribe here so that you are notified when our new videos come out. We've got tons of content coming that I'm really excited for. And thank you for watching. As always, I'm your host, Donovan. Thanks for watching Eurofever Garage. And until next time, see you guys later.